The president of Harvard is responding to President Trump's announcement, seen here, that they will be taking away Harvard's tax-exempt status. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, Alan Garber says this could pose an existential threat.
If the government goes through with a plan to revoke our tax-exempt status, it would, number one, be highly illegal unless there is some reasoning that we have not been exposed to that would justify this dramatic move. But tax-exempt status is granted to educational institutions to enable them to successfully carry out their mission of education and for research universities of research. Obviously, that would be severely impaired if we were to lose our tax-exempt status. And I should add, it would be destructive to Harvard, but the message that it sends to the educational community would be a very dire one, which suggests that political disagreements could be used as a basis to pose what might be an existential threat to so many educational institutions.
And of course, this threat against Harvard also comes as the president signed an executive order attempting to begin the process to defund NPR and PBS. And to that end, NPR's media correspondent, David Folkenflik, is joining our panel now. David, thank you so much for being with us. Because this is the news, let's start with Harvard. But of course, this is, in many ways, the thread that they are pulling together here has to do with what many in the MAGA community view as elite institutions. How do you see what the president of Harvard is doing here? Obviously, they are taking on the administration directly. They, of all universities in the United States, have the most name recognition, the most money, the most power to be able to do so. But we are not seeing every institution take the same approach.
That's absolutely right. And I think there is connective tissue. There's a common theme here. As you say, certainly the president's supporters would argue that these are elite institutions which are somehow aimed at against them, functioning against them. What certainly you could also say is that these are institutions that serve as outside sources of information, and oftentimes outside sources of accountability, checks on official power by providing information that the public can absorb and process and figure out how they feel about the people acting in their name in Washington, in the White House, whether Democrat or Republican. And universities, think tanks, research institutes, and yes, media outlets serve that function. So what you're hearing the president of Harvard say is, listen, this appears to him, in the case that Harvard is making, is that this is illegal, and that this is not following statutory requirements for how you go through unraveling a relationship of funding Harvard in terms of a number of its research programs, or revoking its not-for-profit tax status. But he's also talking broadly to say to institutes, not-for-profits that may take a more conservative line, or just people who may care about such institutions, don't think this stops with us. It could go to anyone who in some ways offends this president, this White House, or any of those to follow.
Congressman McHenry, I was listening to Rand Paul on the floor of the Senate the other night, basically, doing...
Just to relax.
Yeah. I've spent a lot of... Rand Paul has spent many a night keeping me up past my bedtime because he wants to keep the Senate going on something or other. But in this particular case, he was talking, it was basically, Schoolhouse Rock, how a bill becomes a law, in that the power to fund things is supposed to lay with the Congress. Do you think it's illegal for Trump to try to remove Harvard's tax-exempt status, or is it not?
Well, has he done it? The question is, for the president to say he's going to do something, is that illegal?
Well, would it be illegal if he did it?
Oh, I think it's a quite complicated thing to revoke institutions' tax status. I think it's a quite complicated thing, and legally, what the Harvard president said is right. Now, there are a number of different ways that this administration is focused on these elite institutions that have been culturally removed from the vast majority of Americans. They have a problem. These elite universities have a problem. And it is a problem that is political, yes, because you have a supermajority of American people thinking they're dramatically removed from the rest of the United States and not in the national interest. They have a problem they have to address. And if they think they can just haggle about the legal bits of their tax status and win on this, they're really missing the fight. What the president does want is for them to pick a fight back. That is what he is trying to draw out more than anything else, and that serves his politics. Other institutions are quiet about it, trying to work through it. That's probably smarter politics for them in the longer term with the American people.
I think there's a bigger theory of the case here, which isn't about Harvard or PBS or NPR or any of the other myriad places that he has directed his ire. The theory of the case is this: he does not like independence. Anything that takes away from his center of power, he is trying to challenge and destroy. And that is Harvard, that is PBS and NPR, and that is other institutions as well. And this you see over and over and over with him. That is the through thread. I'm not denying that there's a crisis of confidence in institutions writ large in this country, all of them, left and right, center. But that's not really what he's up to. He's not trying to redress that. He's not trying to say, hey, Harvard, be more open to the people. He's actually threatening their very independence. He's taking away money from them for the things that they do, such as research. And PBS and NPR, I mean, when you ask about whether or not this is legal, I mean, the money is given through the Congress. I mean, this is the way this is supposed to work. We've seen President Trump over and over and over again write these decrees as if they're sort of royal decrees, and we haven't seen legislation. If you want to make this happen, take your chances in Congress. Try to pass a law. Talk to your senators and your congresspeople and see if that can happen. Just signing something in a document doesn't make it so.
He's basically taking it to court instead. Ian Sams, how do you look at this? Because, you know, I think there is an argument to be made. Certainly I've heard people in your party make it to me in the aftermath of the election loss that some of what the congressman's saying is right, that there are Americans out there, swing voters in particular, who feel like Democrats lost the cultural thread. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, there is. And he's right. He wants a culture war. He was at my alma mater last night, the University of Alabama, and he put it this succinctly. He said, it's the Crimson Tide versus the Harvard Crimson. He wants to create this us versus them mentality of America where the elites are coming after the normal people. What he doesn't understand is that there's a limit to the politics of that. I've been a part of something called the Working Class Project. We've done 3 dozen focus groups in 12 states so far, exclusively with working class voters, most of whom supported President Trump in the election. Michigan, we were just there last week. Michigan white men expressing concerns about the lawlessness of this administration, suggesting that he is acting a little bit. We actually did a focus group of black men in Michigan too who supported Donald Trump. One of them said he's giving dictator vibes. This stuff is not the political gold that he thinks it is. There will be negative consequences for him, including among types of voters who some people in Washington, some people in the Beltway consultants might not think are attracted to the issue, or who are attracted to the issue aren't attracted to the issue. And so I think that there's a little bit of a mess that he's made for himself here. But certainly, you know, he's trying to tap into the sort of anti-elite, anti-institution mentality that is pervasive in our country.
That's interesting.
Yeah, specifically on Harvard, I'm very torn because I think Harvard has, for some of the reasons Pat is getting at, has invited a lot of these problems upon itself. If you actually read that report, just a lot of really stupid, idiotic stuff going on at Harvard. Some of it I think is unconstitutional, unlawful, given where the Supreme Court is. But I also have a real big problem with like cutting funding for pediatric cancer research to punish the English department. And I think that stuff kind of gets through. Look, there's a bigger macro policy argument that no one's really talking about. This country, as a matter of sort of bedrock foundational public policy, decided that we were going to have universities do a lot of our basic scientific research. And now that policy has worked very well for us. And now the idea is to use that as a cudgel to force the education school to get rid of DEI stuff. That's not how you do basic research. And Harvard made a lot of mistakes, but this is a bad way to go.